Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends. Welcome to the 4th day of official Unstable previews, and boy, do we have a lot of cards to talk about today. Now, you see on the screen here, Dr. Julius Jumblemorph. Well, Jumblemorph is a whole other mechanic that we have to talk about, and it is something really, really cool. So I'm going to jump into that in just a second, just really fast though. If you're looking for a way to support us and what we do here at the channel, it's always appreciated. Just check out the description below. You'll find a few ways. Our Patreon page is linked there. You'll find some products on Amazon. If you go through those links and buy anything, we'll get a small percentage. And finally, Flipside Gaming. They do have a promo code, so you can save some cash there. They're doing pre-orders for Unstable as well as many other things, so check them out. Hopefully save yourself some money. With that being said, let's get into it because we have a lot to talk about. Let's start off with this whole Jumblemorph thing first. Okay, so what are we looking at here? You notice this card does not have an actual casting cost. It has an augment cost. This is what they call an augment card. And trust me, as we go through, all of this will become clearer. So let's look at this first, and then we're going to talk about host cards next. But for this card, it's called MultiHeaded. This is a green card. It's a creature Hydra. It has +4/+4. So this in itself is never going to just be on the battlefield as a creature, but it will enhance a host creature. More on that in just a second. It has an ability, or at least partially an ability. At the beginning of each end step, if you roll a die this turn, ... and then of course it has an augment cost. In this case, it's a green and 4. So, if you reveal this card from your hand after you pay the augment cost, you combine it with a target host, augment only as a sorcery. Okay, so what's a host look like? Well, let's look at an example. Labro Bot. Okay, now this is a host creature hound. It costs 5 to cast. It's also an artifact, incidentally, as you see below there. It's an uncommon 3/3. And it says, when this creature enters the battlefield, return target host card or card with augment from your graveyard to your hand. Now, this card you can play on its own. You can simply cast it for 5. You get the ability when it enters the battlefield. It's a 3/3. Wonderful. But it can be augmented with one of the augment cards. And if you augment it with the one we saw just a second ago, it'll look like this. MultiHeaded Bot. So it has all of the features of the 2 cards. It has converted mana cost of 5. It is a green card. It's an artifact. It's a Hydra Hound. But now you kind of see where that ability or partial ability on the first card becomes relevant. At the beginning of each end step, if you roll a die this turn, return target host card or card with augment from your graveyard to your hand. And this will be a 7/7, the 3/3 with the +4/+4 attached to it. This is really sweet, and I love the fact that these cards all kind of work together. You can make all crazy combinations, and this is just an awesome idea, I think. I also like how they played with the art and the card frames. Really cool. All right, let's look at another example. We have a monkey, another green card, creature monkey, +2/+2 this time. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, ... the augment cost is going to be a green and 2. Here's another host, adorable kitten. This costs a white, host creature cat, common 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, roll a 6-sided die. You gain life equal to the result. Let's put these two together. You get yourself a monkey kitten. And there you have it. So you can kind of see how these start to work now, right? This is a 3/3. Its converted mana cost is going to be 1. It's a 1 white. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, roll a 6-sided die. You gain life equal to the results. Alright, now those are the ones they showed us entirely, but there's a whole bunch more of these augment and host cards. And they did show us at least a number of them, but they did not show us the rules text. So we don't really know what the cards do yet. But let's go through them quickly just so you have an idea of what to expect out here. We'll look at the augment cards first. We have a half kitten, half ... We have humming, ... We have a rhino. We have half shark, half ninja. Half orc, half robo. Steam powered. And here's our host cards. The first one, ordinary pony. Shaggy camel. Crafty octopus. Big boa constrictor. Dirty rat. Common iguana, feisty stegosaurus, eager beaver, No made engine. Okay, now Wizards did give us one more host card that has the full text and everything, so let's look at it. Murrman. This costs a blue and 4. It's a host creature, human fish, common 3/3. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield, you may draw a card. So with 3/3 for 5, I mean, you're paying for the card draw, but it replaces itself. It's always nice, and you can augment it with stuff. So this feels like a pretty decent card, especially a common. Now that that's out of the way, let's look at the Doctor, and then after that, we'll move into some other stuff. All right, let's keep the Jumblemorph ball rolling with Dr. Julius Jumblemorph. This costs a white and green and 2 legendary creature mythic 4/4. This is every creature type, even if the card is not on the battlefield. Whenever a host enters the battlefield under your control, you may search your library and or graveyard for a card with augment and combine it with that host. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. Okay, so this is a card that lets you quickly take advantage of this particular mechanic. When you play a host, you can search up an augment, put it right into play. Just makes everything a lot more efficient. So it feels pretty good for 4 mana, actually, and has a 4/4 body attached to it, too. So that's pretty stable on the battlefield for the most part. I really want to play this in Commander. Now, I've said this in other videos. Of course, these cards are not technically legal in Commander, but some playgroups do allow for some silver-bordered cards. If your playgroup does allow it, could you imagine this being your Commander and just forcing a whole bunch of those host and augment cards into a deck? It could just be a lot of fun. So, I don't know. It just seems like that's kind of the design for some of these legendary creatures. Like, they kind of are pushing and nudging you to maybe play these in Commander, even though, again, technically not legal. But at the same time, I'm sure it's a ton of fun, and I hope a lot of people will be open to that idea. Again, this could be also really sweet in a cube if you make this one of your cube cards to draft around, and you put some of these other hosts in there and your other augment cards in there too. So, overall, just really excited about this mechanic. Can't wait to try it out. By no means. This costs a white and 2. It's an enchantment. It's a rare. And you can pay a 1 and a white, remove a counter from a permanent you control, create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token, or pay a 1 and white, sacrifice an artifact, choose any kind of counter a printed card refers to, then put one of that counter on target permanent. Now, the way I read that, printed card refers to doesn't necessarily mean the printed card has to be in play or on the battlefield. Feels like they're just saying anytime we've ever talked about a type of counter, you're able to put that type of counter on something. So I guess that could be +1/+1 counter, loyalty counter, what have you. So where does it really make sense? Well, so far we haven't seen like any planeswalkers or anything like that in the set, but we have seen a lot of +1/+1 relevant things. So maybe just adding a +1/+1 counter at times could be good enough at the expense of an artifact. Or maybe it's just a sack outlet, like you have an artifact creature that's going to die anyway. You just go ahead and use this ability, get something out of the deal. So within the limited environment, yeah, I do think there's a lot of things you could do with this, and white is heavily into artifacts, so it's in the right color for that for sure. Now, if you think really hard about it, I'm sure you can come up with some pretty broken interactions with this thing. Things like -2, -1 counters, or something like that, where there's counters that are bringing the toughness down, even -1, -1 counters. That could actually be pretty relevant at times. But if you're playing this with black border cards, that opens up a whole new world of different things you could do if you have a cube or something like that. Like think about Magosi, the Water Valve, for example. That could actually be pretty twisted with this card. So let me know in the comments below your favorite combos for this card, because I'm sure there's tons of them out there that you could think of. Side quest. This one costs 1 white. It's a sorcery. Uncommon. Target player in a silver border game you can see from your seat gains control of target creature you control until your next turn. At the beginning of your next upkeep, put 2 +1/+1 counters on that creature. The creature is on the battlefield of only the game its controller is playing. Okay, so the idea behind this is it's just a real cheap way to try to put 2 +1/+1 counters on your creature and just kind of accelerate sort of quickly. The drawback is you're relying on the good nature of someone else playing another silver bordered game that you can see to not sabotage the plan for you, right? Now, one thing to point out here is it doesn't say another silver bordered game. So does that mean it can actually work within the game you're playing? So in other words, target player in a game could be your opponent. If your opponent can't really think of anything good to do with the creature, then maybe you just get the 2 counters. So that's kind of interesting. Or in a multiplayer game, like a commander style game or something, then perhaps you could just give it to someone you're forming an alliance with or something like that. So that makes the card a little more intriguing. Obviously, it looks like there's probably going to be some rules clarification coming on this one. More or less, this costs a blue. It's an instant uncommon. Add or subtract 1 or 1, meaning the numeral 1 or the word 1, from a number or number word on target spell or permanent until end of turn. And the flavor text here, why was 5 afraid of 6? Because 6, 7, 8. Okay. Now, this card can hit a lot of stuff. I mean, it can target permanents, it can target spells on the stack, it can target your stuff, your opponent's stuff. So there's a lot of things it can hit. It's only 1 blue. It's really cheap. Will surprise somebody. You just have to find an actual legal target. That might not always be easy, but if you're playing some cards that fit into this particular requirement, then yeah, you're probably in a good place. So yeah, it's very runnable. I mean, just imagine the last card we just saw. Instead of putting 2 counters on your creature, you'd put 3 counters on your creature. That would be good. If your opponent's trying to do something where they're getting counters or getting tokens, you can subtract that by 1. That seems pretty good. So yeah, there's enough targets for this. I don't think players will usually play around this type of thing. I mean, kind of like the old Force Spike. A lot of times people just don't play around it. The 1 casting cost blue instance, sometimes people just don't either decide to play around because they think they can't worry about it, or they just simply forget they exist. So yeah, I'm sure there's going to be utility for this card from time to time, no doubt. Extremely Slow Zombie. This costs a black and 1. It's a zombie 3/3 common with Last Strike. This creature deals combat damage after creatures without Last Strike. Interesting card. It's pretty cool. I feel like this could have been a black border card, and if it was, it probably would have just said any creature blocked or blocked by this creature gets first strike until end of turn. So yeah, it kind of does the same thing, but instead we have a quirky, fun little keyword attached to it. Good aggro card. I mean, a 3/3 for 2 is good. Could get some early damage across. Now, once your opponent gets a 3-power creature out there, this card gets kind of nullified, so that's the downside of it. But early on, you can get some damage across. Seems interesting. Super Duper Death Ray. This costs a red and 2. It's an instant uncommon with Trample. That's right, an instant with Trample. This spell can deal excess damage to its target's controller, and this will deal 4 damage to target creature. Okay, they've talked about this in the past. This is something Mark Rosewater has discussed, thinking about how to put Trample or some sort of maybe different keyword on different types of spells other than creature spells, right? So this is actually a really sweet way to test it out, and it feels like it would be good, and it feels very intuitive, right? Like, it's not confusing at all. Simply, just like a creature has Trample, this spell has Trample. If I hit a 2/2 creature, the last 2 points hit the opponent that controls the creature, and there you go. Actually, seems really cool, and definitely feels like something we might see in the future in a black border set. 3-Headed Goblin. 2 red and 3. Goblin Mutant Rare 3/3 with Triple Strike this time. This creature deals first strike, regular, and last strike combat damage. So I'm trying to think. I'm putting my rules hat on. Is that different from double strike and last strike? I don't know. So anyway, think about it this way, though. If your opponent can't block it, they're taking 9 damage from this thing. That's pretty significant, so they kind of need to block it or deal with it. For 5 mana, I mean, they might have some chump blockers by that point. But you know what? This card is going to attrition them out unless they can do something like find a removal spell, or at the very least, maybe joint block. And if that's the case, it's at least becoming a 2 or even 3 for 1 for them to get rid of this. Feels like it's actually a pretty decent card. Druid of the Sacred Beaker. This costs a green and 2. It's a Deer Bird Ape Druid, because why wouldn't it be? It's a 2/2 uncommon. You can tap, add green to your mana pool for each Crossbreed Labs watermark among permanents you control. Now, this card in itself has that watermark, so you're at least getting 1 green mana when you tap it. That's kind of nice. And if you draft around this faction, this could be quite a powerful ramp creature for you. So, yeah, decent casting cost of 3, considering it's a 2/2 and has potential to really ramp you out big time. And we haven't seen a lot of the set yet. I mean, still more than half the set needs to be revealed. So we don't know maybe all the big payoffs for the mana, but I have to believe there's going to be some really good ones. So yeah, this feels like it's a really strong card. First Pick. This costs a green and 3. It's an instant uncommon. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Assemble a contraption. Okay, so this feels like a card you would see in a normal black border set, right? Like green and 3, instant, get rid of artifact or enchantment, and it also happens to do whatever the big mechanic of the set is. So this is kind of normal place. And the most crazy thing about it is probably the art and the flavor text and such, but yeah, it feels very at home in any Magic set. And it's also a very good card because, of course, there's a strong artifact theme going on, and do remember, contraptions are artifacts. This could come in very, very handy. Hydra Doodle. This costs 2 green and 2x. Hydra Hound. It's a rare. When this enters the battlefield, roll X 6-sided dice. This will enter the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the total of those results. It has reach, it has trample. So this actually is a very good payoff for that ramp card we saw just a few moments ago. This costs 2 green and 2x. So do remember that if you want to roll 1 die, that's going to cost you 4. It's going to cost you 6 to roll 2, 8 to roll 3, so on and so forth. And it's a high variance card. I mean, you could roll a 1 or 2 1s. That's not going to feel really good if you pour a ton of mana into this. I like the fact, though, that they can go ahead and put cards like this in a set like Unstable, because you're not going to put a card like this in a black bordered set just because the high variance is going to lead to no one ever playing it and actually being very disappointed if they open it, especially a rare, right? So this is a set for these kind of things. It's fun, it's quirky, it might backfire on you, but who knows? It might not even matter. It's just about having a good time, right? Now, if you put this in a black bordered set, you're never going to want to play the thing because you don't want to lose to variance. A little different, I think, when you're playing an unset. I think it's more about having fun and the experience of it itself. So I think it's a pretty cool card. It's fun. I'm glad there's a forum for things like this. And if you get lucky, it's a very, very good creature. Shelliphant. This is 2 green and 1. It is creature turtle and or elephant, of course, uncommon. And the question mark is the power toughness. But you can pay 0 and choose 1. You may activate this ability while Shelliphant is in any zone. And it can either be power toughness 1/4 or 3/3. So for 3 casting costs, it kind of makes sense. Like 1/4 or 3/3 would work with that casting cost. The ability to do it on the fly can actually be quite good for you. So yeah, it's just a decent 3-drop. Better than 1. This costs a green and white sorcery, rare. A person outside the game becomes your teammate. Choose any number of cards in your hand on top of your library or on the battlefield under your control. Those cards become your teammate's hand, library, and permanents respectively. Okay, here's the thing. I was talking about this in yesterday's video too. There's some of these cards that they feel super wacky and crazy and funny. But when you start thinking about them, you're like, wait a minute, that's like extremely powerful. All right. So this is a good example of that. For just simply 2 mana, just 2 mana, granted 2 different colors, but 2 mana. I get to select somebody and just say, okay, you're my teammate, and here's half my deck, here's half my hand. If I have permanents on the battlefield, it's wonderful. Here's half of those or whatever I want to give you, but if not, that's fine too. Because basically from that point forward, I am time walking every turn. That's assuming the person I choose is on the same page as me, they know how to play Magic, right, so on and so forth. But for the most part, if they're truly my teammates and they know what they're doing, then I'm time walking every turn. I'm drawing 2 cards, I'm having 2 attack steps. And yes, the downside, maybe it's easier to mill me out, or if I can't end the game fast enough, if we both have, say, 2 smaller decks, especially in a limited 40-card deck to start with, then there's a clock. We have to put away the game in a reasonable amount of time. But hopefully we can if we're drawing 2 cards per turn, getting 2 attacks per turn, so on and so forth, right? Now, 2 attacks per turn maybe is an exaggeration because it's not the same creatures. We're not sharing creatures, but still. You're basically doing half an attack, half an attack. You're really putting a lot of pressure on your opponent. That extra card draw is huge. Yeah, this feels extremely powerful. Probably too powerful to play really outside of the limited format here. So now the other X factor to take into account with this card is life total. My assumption is when you bring someone into the game, they're going to be at 20 life, which could be significant if it's later in the game and you're at lower life. You could use it to kind of prolong the game for yourself a little bit by bringing in a partner. And I guess my other question is, what happens if you are defeated? Does that mean this person's automatically defeated since they're playing with your cards? Or can they continue? So again, I think there's going to have to be some more rules clarification around this, but overall, seems like it could be pretty good. Buzzing Wackadoodle. This costs 4. It's an artifact, uncommon, and when this enters the battlefield, you and an opponent each secretly choose Whack or Doodle. Then those choices are revealed. If the choices match, Buzzing Wackadoodle has that ability, otherwise it has Buzz. So if you get Whack, you can tap it, target player loses 2 life, Doodle, tap it, you gain 3 life, and Buzz, pay 2, tap it, draw a card. So you kind of want Buzz, I think, most of the time. I mean, not that the others are bad, considering they're repeatable effects for free. You just have to tap the card every time. That actually is not bad at all. But drawing cards is awesome, so it's kind of what you want to do. So it creates this game where your opponent's got to think, okay, which one do they think that I don't want them to have? And then are they going to think that's the one I don't want them to have, so should I switch it to the other one? And they're going to try to match you, in other words. And that could be kind of a fun little side game, right? And if they figure it out, then you still actually get a good ability out of it. So it's kind of no-lose situation for you for 4 mana. So yeah, it's an extremely cool card. I actually like the idea quite a bit here. All right, with that being said, those are the cards for today. Wow, a lot to take in here. And I'm really excited about this set, more so every day. We just see more and more stuff, more mechanics, more crazy just abilities on creatures and on spells. Like, just really excited to sit down and play this in a few weeks at the beginning of December. So I've said this before, I hope it sells well. Feels like there's a lot of buzz around it, a lot of excitement around it. So hopefully it will convert into sales, because I don't want this to be the last on set. This is really, really cool stuff. It reminds me a lot of Future Sight. A lot of people joke around that Future Sight was the third on set. It reminds me a lot of Future Sight. A lot of crazy mechanics. I mean, really deep gameplay, some really powerful cards. This is pretty nuts. So we'll have to see what we find out over the next 24 hours, but we will be back tomorrow with another video recapping that. Also, later tonight, we are going to do a finance video or a market watch video to talk about Iconic Masters a little bit, in case you might have forgotten, but that comes out tomorrow, and anyone who's going to be playing at the game store this weekend, we're going to talk about the best cards value-wise to open up in your booster packs. So until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.